Layla's heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. She stood just a few steps from a mighty lion, its sharp teeth glinting in the sunlight. The beast's fierce eyes met hers. For a moment, Layla froze. She had worked so patiently for this chance, yet the reality of facing a wild animal felt more terrifying than she ever expected. Holding a piece of fresh meat in one trembling hand, she wondered if this final step would cost her life. Layla lived in a small village in Ethiopia with her husband Alemu. When they first married, Alemu was warm, gentle, and always laughing. He brought joy into their home with his stories and careful attention to everyone's needs. Their life was simple, but filled with contentment. Day by day, however, something in Alemu changed. He started coming home with a faraway look in his eyes. He stopped laughing at the small things that used to delight him. Layla noticed he spoke to her less, and when he did, his words were sharp and impatient. She tried to please him in every way she knew, cooking his favorite meals, keeping their modest house spotless, and greeting him with a kind smile. Nothing seemed to reach him. One evening, Alemu snapped at her for no clear reason. He did not yell, but his harsh tone cut through her. He retreated to the corner of their small room and refused to talk. Layla's eyes welled with tears. She went outside, sat on a low wooden stool, and gazed at the stars. She wondered what had become of the gentle, caring man she had married. Her heart felt heavy. She feared if nothing changed, she would lose him forever. In that same village lived an old woman, known to everyone simply as Mother. She was a healer who used herbs and natural remedies to cure people. Some also whispered that she understood deeper mysteries. People came to her for all sorts of problems, both of the body and the soul. Layla had always heard that Mother was wise, so one morning she decided to seek her help. When she arrived, she found the old woman grinding leaves into a bowl. The healer looked up with kind, knowing eyes. "Mother, please help me," Layla said, barely above a whisper. Her voice trembled. "My husband has changed so much. I don't recognize him anymore. No matter how hard I try, I cannot reach him." The old woman pressed her lips together in thought. Finally, she asked gently, "What do you want me to do, child?" "I want a potion," Layla said, her voice rising with a fresh burst of hope. "A potion that will make my husband love me again." Mother raised an eyebrow. "A potion, is it?" She put aside her bowl and wiped her hands on a piece of cloth. "Well, such things do not come easily. I can make you a potion, but there is one special ingredient I must have." Layla leaned forward. "I will do anything. You must bring me a whisker from a living lion." Layla's eyes widened. "A lion? But how?" "That is for you to find out," Mother said. "If you truly want to save your marriage, you must find a way. Without that whisker, I can do nothing for you." Layla left the healer's house with her thoughts in turmoil. A lion's whisker. She had heard stories of how fierce lions roamed the forest near the village. To even catch a glimpse of one could mean danger, or worse. But whenever she remembered Alemu's cold eyes and recalled the warmth that once filled their home, she knew she had to try. So each morning, Layla rose before the first rays of sunlight. She wrapped a small piece of fresh meat in cloth, then walked quietly to the edge of the forest. She did not dare enter at first. She only stood at the boundary of tall trees, heart pounding, scanning the area for any signs of the great lion said to live there. Days passed before she saw anything move among the shadows. Then, one dawn, she saw the lion, strong, majestic, and proud, with a full mane. Fear raced through her, but she reminded herself of her goal. She placed the meat on the ground and backed away slowly, never taking her eyes off the creature. It stood still, watching her. Then it stepped forward, sniffing the air. With one swift motion, it seized the piece of meat and disappeared into the trees. Layla repeated this act every day. She spoke softly whenever she saw the lion, so it could grow used to her voice. She would set the food down, say a few words, and retreat. Over time, she inched closer and closer, listening to the forest's silence, feeling her nerves steady. Although she was still afraid, her determination was greater. Weeks slipped by. Rain fell, and she kept bringing meat. Days grew hot under the sun, and still she persisted. Each time, the lion showed less fear when it saw her. Its ears would prick up, but it no longer prowled away at once. Layla noticed the lion started to wait for her, as if expecting her daily visit. Sometimes she left the meat and stayed a short distance away, whispering her gentle greetings. Little by little, she realized the lion was growing calm in her presence. It began to accept her closeness as normal. There came a morning when it did not flinch as she stepped near. She felt its warm breath as it gnawed on the food she'd brought. The beast lifted its head and watched her with eyes that no longer looked so threatening. Her heart still beat hard, but not from sheer terror now. She felt a cautious trust forming between them. At last, the day came when Layla decided she was ready. The lion rested near a large rock, the sun casting its shadow across the ground. She knelt down, placing the meat gently at its paws. Her hands trembled. Her mouth went dry. Still, she moved forward, inch by inch. She spoke to the lion in a steady, low voice, telling it how grateful she was for its acceptance. Then, slowly, with her fingertips, she reached toward its mane. The lion let out a low growl, but it did not lunge at her. Her breath caught, but she kept her hand there, as gentle as she could manage. She stroked the lion's mane once, just enough to find a single firm whisker. She took hold of that whisker between her fingers, braced herself, and gave a quick, careful tug. It came loose. In a moment, she stood and backed away, clutching the whisker. Adrenaline surged through her. The lion let out a roar, but it did not attack. Layla bowed her head slightly, then turned and walked back toward the village with unsteady steps. Her relief felt overwhelming. She had done the impossible. The very next morning, she went straight to Mother's house. The old woman opened the door and listened silently to Layla's excited report. "Here," Layla said, placing the whisker in the healer's weathered hand. "I have it. Now you can make the potion to help my husband." But to Layla's shock, Mother simply smiled. She held the whisker over a small clay oven and dropped it into the flames. The whisker burned and vanished in a tiny wisp of smoke. "Why did you do that?" Layla cried, stepping back. "You said you needed that to make the potion." Mother's eyes shone with gentle understanding. "I do not need a magic potion, my child, and neither do you. You have already shown great patience, courage, and tenderness. You tamed a lion with your steady devotion and earned its trust. Do you not see? That is exactly what you need to bring your husband back. Approach him with the same patience and persistence." A whirlwind of emotions filled Layla's heart. Part of her felt angry and tricked, but another part realized the truth in the old woman's words. The time, care, and courage she had offered the lion could also be offered to Alamu. If she could show a wild beast such gentle determination, perhaps she could break through her husband's lonely shell. For the next few days, Layla thought about how to change her approach at home. Instead of waiting for Alamu to snap, she greeted him gently, the moment he returned from the fields. She did not push him to talk, but she sat by him, offering quiet company. She asked small, simple questions, showing that she cared, but not demanding more than he could give. Even when he answered in grunts or terse words, she remained calm. Sometimes she would bring him water or a piece of roasted grain, just as she had brought the lion food, letting him see her kindness. In those first days, Alamu stayed distant. He took the water with barely a nod, but Layla remembered the lion's wary gaze. She reminded herself how long it had taken before the lion would even let her stand close without running away. She told herself that she had to be patient with Alamu's wounded heart. Little by little, his eyes softened. One evening, he sat down next to her and laid his hand on hers. He did not say anything, but that small gesture felt like the first drop of rain after a long drought. On another day, he surprised her by asking if she needed help with a chore. Then he offered a weak smile, something she had not seen for many months. It was as if the door that had been shut between them was opening, inch by inch, allowing light to shine in. They spoke about old memories. Alemu told her about the troubles that weighed on his mind, debts, disappointments, and moments where he felt he had failed as a husband. Layla listened without blame, just as she had once stood silently before the lion's den. She did not lecture him or scold him for shutting her out. Like feeding the lion each day, she offered only understanding and reassurance. Over time, Alamu's warmth returned. He laughed again, sharing the old stories he used to tell. He found small ways to help Layla around the house, showing that her devotion had not gone unnoticed. Their home felt alive once more. One morning, she woke early to make tea. She watched Alamu as he slept. Peace rested on his face, unlike the hard lines that once grew there. She thought of the terrifying morning she faced the lion and felt grateful for the lesson it had taught her. No potion in the world could match the power of genuine patience, steady effort, and honest love. Although the sun had not fully risen, Layla grabbed her shawl and walked to the edge of the village. She looked toward the forest. The towering trees stood silent in the early light. She closed her eyes and imagined the lion padding among them, strong and free. That same strength lived in her now. She smiled, breathed in the fresh air, and walked back home, ready to greet her husband with the tenderness that had once seemed impossible. In the weeks that followed, their bond grew deeper than before. Alemu found comfort in Layla's gentle nature, and Layla discovered a new confidence in herself. Whenever challenges threatened to break their peace, she remembered the old woman's words. If she could earn the trust of a lion, she could face whatever troubles came their way. And so their story came to a quiet but powerful resolution. Their village might have looked the same to any traveler passing by, but within their home, love was rekindled. Slowly, through patience and persistent care, Layla and Alamu built a life that was no longer fragile, but strong at its roots. And though no one saw it, somewhere in the nearby forest, a great lion lived on, bearing one whisker less, but a memory of the woman who approached it with courage and kindness. Share your thoughts about this story in the comments section, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more exciting stories from the heart of Africa.